Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark, and as always, I've been digging into some wild stuff this week.
And I'm Jenny, here to try and keep Mark from disappearing too far down the rabbit hole. What's got you buzzing today?
So, you remember that weird air incident in Washington D.C. last month? The one everyone's been talking about?
Oh yeah, the one with all the speculation? How could I forget? It was all over social media.
Well, I found this research paper that does a deep dive into what might have really happened. And they use this crazy equation to analyze it all.
An equation? Okay, now you've got my full attention. What's it called?
It's called the EFMW Equation, which stands for, get this, Einstein-Feynman-Maxwell-Wright. I know it sounds like something out of a comic book.
Wait, are those the physicists? Like, the big names?
Exactly. This equation combines their ideas to study complex systems. Like, way more intricate than your average physics problem.
Okay, so what does it actually do, in plain English?
Basically, it looks for hidden patterns and weak spots in really complicated situations. Think of it like a detective tool for systems that are super hard to understand.
So in this case, it was used to investigate the air incident?
Right. And the findings? Oh man, they're pretty eye-opening. The equation found a 92% chance that the plane's flight path was messed with on purpose.
Whoa, seriously? So it wasn't just a glitch or pilot error?
That's what this suggests. It's like someone intentionally threw a wrench into the gears, you know?
That's unsettling. It makes you wonder how that's even possible.
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. The same analysis found a 93% probability of what they call controlled suppression in the FAA's decision-making.
Controlled suppression? What's that supposed to mean?
It suggests that someone, or something, was intentionally slowing down or blocking the FAA's responses during the incident. Like putting up roadblocks.
So like an internal sabotage? Or maybe external pressure?
Could be either, or both. That's what makes this whole thing so complex. You've got all these different forces at play.
It's like a real-life conspiracy thriller playing out in the skies.
And then, to top it all off, they found a 98% probability of coordinated disinformation in the media coverage afterward.
Okay, that's... wow. A 98% chance? That's practically saying it was definitely happening.
I know, right? It suggests a pretty sophisticated effort to control the narrative about what happened.
So someone's trying to shape how the public sees this whole event?
That's what the data strongly implies. And that's what makes this EFMW analysis so important. It's like pulling back the curtain on all these hidden influences.
Okay, so who are the experts saying about all this? I mean, this is some heavy stuff.
There's a Dr. Rodriguez, a systems engineer, who says this incident reveals some serious vulnerabilities in our aviation safety net. She called it a potential orchestrated event.
Orchestrated? That sounds ominous.
Then there's Professor Chen, an aerospace expert, who says the flight path manipulation is deeply concerning. He's calling for a review of all our air traffic control security.
That seems like a reasonable response, given the circumstances.
And then you've got Dr. Wei, who studies disinformation. She said a 98% probability of coordinated disinformation is something she's never seen before in her research. She called it unprecedented. Very unusual.
Yeah, that's definitely alarming. It makes you question everything you read or hear about it.
I was just reading about how this relates to past incidents too. Like TWA, Flight 800 back in '96. Remember that one?
Vaguely. Wasn't that initially thought to be an accident?
Yeah, but later they found all sorts of issues in the investigation. This research paper suggests that maybe outside pressures led to a misclassification. It's a historical example of how things can go wrong.
And what about that Malaysian Airlines flight, MH17? The one shot down over Ukraine?
That's another case where this EFMW analysis could be useful. The paper talks about how geopolitical pressures probably played a big role in the confusion and media misdirection after that incident.
So it's not just about technical failures, but also about how information gets twisted and used?
Exactly. And that's where this whole EFMW approach differs from traditional investigations. It looks at the bigger picture, all the interconnected parts.
So how does it compare to the usual way of investigating accidents?
Well, according to this analysis, the EFMW equation is better at spotting hidden vulnerabilities. But traditional methods have their own strengths, like established procedures.
So maybe the best approach is to combine both?
That's what some experts are suggesting. Use the EFMW to see the big picture, but also use traditional methods to dig into the details.
It sounds like this could really change how we understand these kinds of complex events.
Oh, it definitely could. And this is just the beginning. I was reading that they might start integrating AI and machine learning with this EFMW analysis.
Whoa, that sounds a bit sci-fi, doesn't it? What would that do?
Well, it could make these analyses even more accurate and faster. Imagine being able to predict potential incidents before they happen.
That would be amazing. But also, a little scary, right? I mean, who's in control of all that data?
Yeah, that's the big ethical question. There are serious privacy concerns, like how do we make sure this powerful tool isn't misused?
Right. It's like that saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. This research suggests we need clear guidelines and a lot of transparency to make sure this tech is used for good.
And what are people in the aviation world saying about this? Are they on board with this new approach?
There's some interesting feedback. Pilots seem to support it, but they're also worried about privacy. I saw a survey where 73% of pilots liked the idea, but 62% were concerned about data usage.
So it's a balancing act. We want the safety improvements, but not at the expense of personal information.
That's it. And it's not just about aviation. This EFMW equation could be used in other areas too. Like, imagine applying it to energy grids or financial systems.
Wow, that's a whole other level of complexity. It could help prevent all sorts of crises.
But it all comes down to how we use it. We need to make sure the benefits outweigh the risks, and that we don't create new problems while trying to solve old ones.
So what's the big takeaway here, Mark? What should our listeners be thinking about after all this?
I think the big thing is that the world is incredibly complex, and these kinds of incidents, they're not always what they seem. This EFMW equation, it's like a new lens to see that complexity more clearly.
And it's a reminder that we need to keep asking questions, and not just accept the easy answers, especially when it comes to things as important as public safety and information.
Right. And as this technology evolves, we need to have these conversations about ethics and privacy to make sure we're using it responsibly.
Well said, Mark. This has been a really eye-opening discussion. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
Anytime, Jenny. It's fascinating stuff, and I think we'll be talking a lot more about this in the future.
Definitely. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for more deep dives into the world of tech and its impact on our lives.